Welcome to the Starfighter Podcast.
Welcome back to the Starfighter Podcast. We're talking Bad Batch Episode 9 tonight. It is Dom and Ethan. What's going on, bro?
Saw, dude. Yeah, not much. Just really cool episode. So I'm just ready to chill and talk about it.
Yeah, totally. Well, right off the bat, really quick before we jump in, if you're not already, hit that subscribe button for us. Leave us a like. Definitely leave us a comment and join the conversation. And you can check out the podcast feed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Hit us up over there. We'd appreciate it. Helps out the channel and our show a whole lot. So thanks for tuning in. Why don't we jump into things, Ethan? You want to give your initial thoughts on the episode as a whole?
I thought we learned a lot in this episode. I thought it was actually really useful. I don't think it was a filler, quote unquote. And I think it was just a great pickup of where we ended off last week, basically right after. And so I thought it was a really good story and definitely some cool moments in it. And I'm sure a lot more Easter eggs than most people can probably find. So yeah, I thought it was a really cool episode and I think we kind of talked about it, but it's kind of what I expected out of it too. And it didn't cease to amaze me.
Yeah, same here. And there's definitely some good Easter eggs. So I'm really looking forward to diving into those, hearing your thoughts on that. And again, shout out to our audience. Definitely let us know if there's some Easter eggs that we missed, because we want to hear about them and want to hear your guys' theories as well. But again, really enjoyed the episode. We get some pretty good action scenes with Cad Bane and others. And yeah, I think it definitely helps the story progress. And I feel like we get a couple of little reveals here and there, but they're definitely significant for our story. So let's jump right into the opening. The crew is escaping Braca, but we see that Crosshair, he is trying to chase them down. They end up cutting to hyperspace, but I do want to mention, we're taking a look at Crosshair here. He's bandaged up because, again, from where we left off last week, he got hurt pretty bad by those flames from the engine. So definitely kind of interesting to see here, him chasing them down. He's really not giving up, right?
No matter how jacked up he is.
Yeah. And again, the crew cuts out. They enter hyperspace. Omega is currently trapped on Cad Bane's ship. And I did want to point out, she's trapped right here, of course. Well, Cad Bane comes to talk to her for a minute. But what's really interesting is that a little Easter egg here. He takes off his hat. Don't have a picture of it, but he takes off his hat, and there's kind of like this metal. It kind of looks like a bandage, but it's like a metal plate on the top of his head. And so, just like, this is a possible Easter egg right here, and maybe we could get a little bit of speculation, because it's possible that he had a run-in with Boba Fett that we never got to see. I don't know if you were aware of this, but there is an arc with him and Boba Fett that was going to be released but never got released for Clone Wars. So maybe previous to this, he had a run-in with Boba Fett, and things got dicey. Maybe Boba Fett kind of got him back, because I believe Cad Bane is the one that is Cad Bane the one that put the bolt,
so
the bolt in his helmet? Yeah.
That's what I was
Tell
going
us
to
about
say.
it.
Is they
Tell us
were.
about it.
That's kind of what that arc I think was going to try and go into. It was going to be kind of like an explanation as to how Boba Fett got that dent in his helmet that we've always seen. Because we haven't, in Clone Wars, we didn't see him with a Boba helmet at all for the most part. We saw him with helmets, but they weren't like the Mandalorian helmets. And so yeah, that's what I heard that arc was going to try and go into. And they had some, the early draft, animation stuff for it, for a duel that they were going to have. But, yeah, it never got made. So, yeah, I think it's definitely possible with Cad Bane. There's a lot of story that we just haven't seen of him yet. Like even in Clone Wars, it's been a while since we saw his character. Like the last 2 seasons, I don't really think we saw him. Um, at
Yeah.
least 6 and 7, I don't think we saw him. I think the season before we might have seen him for a bit, but yeah, it's hard to tell. But it's also that Bane's like constantly changing his outfit too. So like I feel like the past few times we see him, he's changed his outfit. Like he always has a nice hat, but besides that, um, so who knows? I definitely think it'd be cool if they add that into the story, especially, and we'll get into it later. I think there's a lot of possibility for him to end up seeing Boba at some point, with the way the story's going.
Let's talk about how Bane is working for Lama Su. He contacts Lama Su, again, the head of the Kaminoans and the head of the clone facility. The plan here is that Bane is going to bring Omega back to them so that they can continue their phase 3 of cloning, right? And so it's interesting because we also see this conversation where Lama Su tells both Nala Se and Tan Wee, who we've seen in Attack of the Clones. Tan Wee is the Kaminoan who meets Obi-Wan when he visits Kamino and to learn more about the clones and the facility and everything. And so Tan Wee is going to be kind of like the middle person and grab Omega from Cad Bane, bring her back. But the instructions from Lama Su is that he wants them to extract kind of her DNA or whatever, and then after that terminate her. And so I feel like this was definitely giving us a little bit more information because it's the first time that I know that he actually has plans to kill her.
Yeah, for sure. They haven't talked about that at all yet. They just knew they wanted her back. I just thought it was a really interesting dynamic, and I think it was funny seeing how he was like aware of like the relationship that Omega had with Nala Se. Yeah, so he was kind of like really hesitant about sending Nala Se to pick her up because he knows that she basically like let Omega get away, is what it seems like now. And because they haven't talked about that yet since episode 1, like they just haven't talked about it. But it seems like he's very aware that she doesn't want her there. And yeah, I just thought it was an interesting dynamic, and seeing that they like kind of went to Bane first, or Lama Su just went to Bane, and I don't know. I think it was funny, and it kind of sets up the rest of this whole dynamic of hiring these bounty hunters, because I think it's funny how the Kaminoans have like all this money, but they just don't have like any forces to do anything besides the clones, and they don't even want like the Empire knowing about it now because let's be honest, the clones aren't really theirs. At the end of the day, it's the Empire's at this point. So yeah, I think it's funny to see this dynamic and how they're reaching out to all these random bounty hunters that we haven't really talked about in a long time.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing like more and more layers stack up when it comes to, I think, antagonists.
Yeah,
I guess is what we'll call them for the most part, because of course we've got Crosshair and we've got Tarkin in the background as well. Well, now we have Lama Su who has his own plans, his own agenda, but him and Nala Se are not on the same page because, like you
yeah,
mentioned, Nala Se really cares for Omega, and actually, it. I think that we definitely get the impression that she'll pretty much do anything that she can to keep Omega safe.
yeah, yeah. And we see that more in the episode too, as to like the lengths that she's gone to try and keep Omega safe.
Cut back to the ship. The Bad Batch are kind of talking. Of course, they're trying to track Omega, and I think Tech is the one that kind of brings up. It was either Tech or Echo because I constantly get the two confused.
Because Tech is the one that just drops this stuff like it's nothing. And it was like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
See, I wish real quick. I'll say I wish that they would give Tech and Echo a little more screen time to dive into them.
Mhm.
Because I feel like one reason why me and maybe some others might get them confused is because I feel like Hunter and Wrecker are more towards like the front, um and Tech and Echo are kind of like on the back burner just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they kind of accomplish the same things together in a way. Like, they each kind of
Yeah.
have their own thing, but I think Tech and Echo are very, you know, they're close, like in their skills to some extent, I guess.
Right, right.
That
That
it's
too for
hard to
sure.
differentiate.
Yeah, that too for sure. And then Hunter and Wrecker have established like their own distinct relationship with Omega as
Yeah.
kind of like the father and then like the fun big brother.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, Tech drops this reveal explaining a little bit more why Omega is so special because she's a Generation 1 unaltered clone of Jango Fett, and the only other person out there, the only other clone like her is the person that was once called the Alpha and is now referred to as Boba Fett. And so this was really interesting as well. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about here?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the fact that they just have like a female boba like that's just straight up how it is. And I think it's funny to see that that's like why they want her to some extent, but it's also going to the fact that I think the main part is that they're unaltered. It's just like a clone, like a straight up clone. They're not, boosted so that they grow up faster. Because if that were the case, then um, why not just get like Rex or Cody? Like those are the same thing, but they're unaltered. And so that's why Omega's so special, is because I guess there's something wrong with whatever they did to clones prior. So I think it makes sense as to why they want, this DNA from her now. And like I said, it's purely for business, it seems, because it's that DNA that's going to keep building an army because they're running out of resources to keep and maintain like a clone army. And so
Yeah.
I think getting that makes a lot more sense than trying to like boost them, like put them on steroids basically to make them like some crazy, attribute thing. And it's like on top of that too, it's like, why not just get a bunch of crosshairs, right? Or like make a better crosshair. Like a perfect aim clone, like army of clones would be like all you need. Um, so yeah, I think it makes a lot more sense for them to have their eyes set on Omega and just trying to maintain something, because at the end of the day, that's what they care about, is the profits that they're going to make from it, rather than the outcome of the actual war. Even though that might make money for them, right now there's no war. So they don't have to worry about quality, I guess, as much, even though Tarkin's made a big deal. They just have to worry about keeping it um, maintainable, because that compared to, just a bunch of recruits is going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory for the most part. But if like there's anyone out there that's a little bit confused about this whole situation, I was just gonna say the way that I think about it is when you're making a copy like on a printer, after a while the ink starts to fade, right? After so many copies, and so they're trying to get back to the original template, which is Django Fett, but the closest that they can get, the absolute closest that they can get, is either Boba Fett or Omega, and no one knows where the heck Boba Fett is, but they have ways of tracking Omega right now, so that's why they want her, so that their product can be like a whole lot better and like more appealing to the Empire, and so the Empire will stick around.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
We cut back to Cad Bane. He's landing his ship on what I believe is Bora Vio. So he keeps calling for Todo, his droid, but again, Omega was kind of like trying to play some mind games with him a little bit and ends up um, tricking him so that she can disable him. She steals back her communicator and she's able to escape. So now Bane's like running after her, and he finally catches up to her, and then he hears a blaster. That's when we get this reveal here. Fennec Shand is still after Omega. And this is kind of where things start to really pick up here in the episode and get more intense. Really curious to hear your thoughts when it comes to uh, this fight that the two of them have. Kind of your thoughts on who has the upper hand. I think that's
Yeah.
that's what really appealed to me with this story for this episode. But yeah, they're basically trying to battle each other to take Omega back.
I I was definitely thinking about that a lot, like just their fighting styles and stuff, because you kind of get a lot of like cutbacks of them fighting, and I think they're very different. I think Fennec has kind of like more of like a martial arts, like way like more, thought out like attacking style and everything, and um, compared to Cad Bane, who was talking about all this experience that he had, and it makes sense. Like I think gadgets wise and all that, he has a little more like an upper hand, but he's just like a straight up brawler at the end of the day, and he's also just the skinny guy. With so I think it's just funny seeing them fight, but at the end of the day, I think Fennec has an upper hand when it comes to just like hand to hand. Like she's kind of kicking him around for a hot minute. Um,
Yeah,
but I definitely think Cad Bane does have more experience and to some extent, but is also very reliant on just their like gadgets and abilities and stuff. And we've seen that back in the Clone Wars too. It's how he always got away or like had a chance against the Jedi was with his gadgets. Like it was never just brute strength. It was brains and tech. I thought we'd see like Fennec shoot more because like she has really good aim and all that. So I was curious to see like how that would play out, but they didn't really. They kind of just shot blindly for most of the shots that they fired.
the
Um,
fight is also broken up a little bit too.
yeah, for sure.
So before we get kind of to the end of the fight, I was gonna move forward just a little bit. Um, Fennec knocks out Cad Bane for just a minute and is able to meet up with Omega, and they have this moment where they're kind of talking. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the background as well. But Fennec is telling Omega that basically, she doesn't need to be too worried about her because she's kind of on her side in a way. Fennec is working for Nala Se, who is trying to protect Omega. So this is again going back to those layers of things really stacking up and having all these different sides working against each other. Fennec is trying to get Omega and get her to safety essentially because she's being hired by Nala Se. Cad Bane again is working for Lama Su, who is trying to take her DNA and then kill her. So even though Fennec is like somewhat selfishly doing these things because she's a bounty hunter, she's in it for the money, she also is ultimately on the better side here, on like the good side essentially, right? Because she's doing a good thing. She's being paid to do a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I would also like your thoughts here just for a moment on we see kind of like these tubes behind them with clones, which was really interesting. For a second, I really thought that they were Snoke clones, but I believe that they're actually altered clones of the Kaminoans because the Kaminoans also have experimented on their own species. But yeah, any thoughts on these?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was interesting just seeing like Fennec try and be good. Like, um, I can't think of the term for it right now, but every time we've seen Fennec, it's in a brighter light. Like, I don't think we'll not see that. Like, even in Book of Boba, I think we'll still be like rooting for her and Boba to some extent. So I don't really think we'll think of her as like evil, but just a bounty hunter. And so I think her working for Nala Se just adds that balance between her and Cad Bane. And but at the same time, I think it also makes Cad Bane more of a threat that you're sending in like someone like Fennec to have to deal with it. Um, but it's also like, don't you think Nala Se knew that they hired Bane, like of all bounty hunters? Like I think Fennec knew what she was going to end up fighting, and I thought that was interesting to think about. But Yeah, when it comes to these clones, I definitely think no way they're like normal clones of just like, you know, troopers, but definitely more so Kaminoan like looks to them, very like slender and slimy, and also like
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of a
yeah,
weird scene when one breaks apart and like falls on top of
yeah. I was gonna say
Fennec.
like, but the animation of that looked like insanely good to me. Like this is the one thing I can't get over with. Like I haven't seen an effect like that in Clone Wars or Rebels really that like looked really solid, of like a water effect or like some weird slime effect, and it looked super good and crisp, especially for like the dark room they're in. Um,
Yeah,
it just gives like I think the animation on the show's insanely good. And yeah, I really like these scenes, and it's just people will be speculating on those clones for a while now. But yeah, I at first like from when you're looking in them, you get more of like a Snoke vibe to it. But when they come out, they're just tall as heck and slimy, and so maybe Snoke, but they're definitely different, and I think more like put together. Like they aren't all like messed up and everything, or like have some weird like shape to them. Like they're very like alien,
yeah,
like more so alien like. Like it's what you'd expect to come out of a UFO.
yeah.
Um,
Doing a little bit of research, I found that that's most likely altered versions of the Kaminoans, but
yeah, just with
just
big heads,
yeah, just
bigger heads.
interesting to see that, and maybe we'll get like more on that later. But I think maybe it kind of just again goes to show that they're definitely working on multiple projects, right? And just like are getting to the point where they're desperate and they want to keep their business running. Moving on from here, we did see Ton Wee unfortunately on the ground dead, and so I it was oh, it was Fennec who killed her, right?
Yeah, kind of the
Yeah.
opening shot for First Blood.
Yeah, and so, that was kind of sad because
Yeah,
I feel like Tanwi actually was again, she's kind of like the middle person here, kind of just the messenger, right?
yeah.
Kind of. Um, but I don't think that Tanwi necessarily had bad motives. But she was for sure following orders,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Well,
Um,
I don't think to be honest, like, and this might seem cruel or anything like that, but even though Countdowns are looking at it like this, I don't think it's unfair for them to not think of it as like a dark motive or something like that. Like these are experiments that they've basically been doing, and these are like their property or whatever that they've like created, and um, so it makes sense as to why they just think about it so casually. Like, yeah, we'll do this and then terminate it. Like they did this with fives back in the day, and they didn't care. Like
that's a good
it,
point. They just have a way different mindset.
yeah, because it's just like it's science to them. Like it's working. It's how they do their business and all of that. Like they send out all these clones to die like every day. Like I don't think them having to terminate one to keep doing that like really bothers them. And so even though it seems really like messed up to us, like to them, I don't think it has nearly the same amount of impact as like scientists or something like that. Like if some scientist had some like a lab rat, right, that they came up with, or it wouldn't make as big of a difference. But it is definitely weird, especially when they're like human like clones, to think
Yeah.
about. And but yeah, I think just looking at their point of view, it's never been that big of a deal to them, and it really reminds me of like fives back in the day, and they felt the same way with Crosshair and all that, and um, they care about the property, but they only care about it because of the usefulness they have to it. Like with Crosshair, like when they're working on the chip or whatever, they only did it because they didn't want him terminated, but it's also because they knew he was useful to their business and all that, because he was going to be the one that proves to the Empire that clones are useful. Like that's the reason they were worried about him. But when it came to fives, they never cared. They went with it. And so I think it's just fine to see that perspective from them.
Yeah, good point. That makes a lot of sense for sure. Omega is able to get away again. Cad Bane and Fennec are chasing after Omega, but they end up getting into this fight again. This is where it gets interesting again because oh, I'm just like thinking to myself who's going to come out on top, and so in my mind, again, I think Cad Bane is like the best of the best, but also I know that they're really trying to, and rightfully so, kind of push Fennec's story farther because again, this is going to tie into a little bit with Book of Boba Fett later and give more context and background when it comes to her personality and her motives in Mandalorian. So in both shows, it's going to add
Yeah.
to Book of Boba Fett and it's going to add to her in Mandalorian. So, um, and we already know like she can totally hold her own. It's just I was really feeling like Cad Bane was going to come out on top or should come out on top, but um, thinking back to that metal plate on his head, we didn't know that he had that last episode. So we're kind of thinking, oh, this is definitely the same Cad Bane that we know, but maybe he's not 100% anymore. And yeah, she definitely got in a lot of good hits. I will say I don't understand how like he got her on the ground at one point and literally kicked her in the head, but it didn't knock her out. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of crazy to me. So the way that it kind of ends up is that she throws like one of those wires that ties him up and he actually falls over this cliff. He has jet boots, thankfully, going back to his tech kind of
Yeah.
kind of saves him, but he's definitely all tied up and really like limited on what he can do. And at this point Omega has made it to this transport where she's able to contact or like put out a signal again with the Bad Batch, and she flies off in the escape pod. Toto,
Yeah.
Cad Bane's droid, isn't able to catch her either. Also, again, Toto is a really funny droid.
Yeah. His voice is funny. It's just
Yeah,
his movements and personality.
for sure. And so, it all ends well for Omega at the end of the day because the Bad Batch pick her up their ship and they're reunited. And then at the very end, to close things out for the episode, Hunter promises that he's going to keep her safe and that she's never going to have to go back to Camino or be tested on ever again. That's how we end things. But yeah, kind of like these closing sequences. Give us your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I definitely think the ending to Bane and Phoenix like fight is definitely interesting. Like they kind of just at one point cut to like Fennec like on the ground, like getting kicked, like either in the head or like definitely the stomach. And then at some point she just like, even though she messed with like Bane's ship so he couldn't go away, like just dipped out and hers like super fast. But yeah, I thought it ended super well, and I didn't expect honestly Omega to get back to the Bad Batch like this episode. Like I figured she'd probably end up with Fennec or something. Um, but it's also like one thing I couldn't think of is like, okay, so what if Fennec had Omega? Like what's gonna happen to her? It's like if she can't take her back to Camino, it's like if she goes back to Camino, it's not safe. Um, but it's like Lamasu's, I don't know, just everything that he's doing, it has Nalase just like as long as Omega is like anywhere else from
Yeah.
here, like anywhere else. And so I'm just like, but I have no clue what they're gonna do. Like, what are you gonna take her to Boba? Like, what's gonna happen here? Boba isn't, getting paid to babysit, and neither is Fennec really. So I don't know. I just think it's funny seeing that, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And that's one thing I kind of wish we knew is like what was going to happen to Omega if Fennec got away with her.
Yeah.
Like it's not like she's just gonna, give her back to the Bad Batch because she was trying to get her from the Bad Batch at one point. So I think Nalase has this idea for her of getting her like somewhere, like has some plan for her to keep her safe, but they can't figure it out. So I think at some point we'll learn more about that. But Nalase was honestly just fine with like the result of everything. Like, wasn't even disappointed that Fennec, like, that was weird to me because she wasn't mad that Fennec got away, or that Fennec got away without Omega, but she was also probably the one that sent Fennec after Omega.
Yeah,
to
she
get her
was.
from the Bad Batch. Yeah, so that was confusing to me because I'm like, why would you try to get her away from the Bad Batch, but then be okay with her being with the Bad Batch? And so I think that'll be interesting to look at more, just because we haven't really seen Nalase's like perspective on that.
I guess two ways of looking at it would kind of be like, one, things are getting like more desperate. You know what I mean? Like the situation. And so maybe she didn't, Nalase didn't really like her being with the Bad Batch, more so because they were going to run into problems and danger. And these are also soldiers, and they're kind of, wanted by the Empire. So she doesn't really want her to be in danger by tagging along with the Bad Batch. But again, because it's more desperate times here, she's seen that they've been able to keep Omega safe. So maybe she's kind of just like, yeah, that's the best case scenario at this point, just letting her go. And also, who knows, maybe that could have been the first time that Lama Su had said that we're going to terminate her after we take what we need.
For sure.
So that could kind of been the game changer there.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. Like, we still don't know what her plan was, like where she may have told Fennec to take Omega. That would be really interesting. But yeah, I think that pretty much kind of does it for our review, man. I think we both really enjoyed the episode. I would say 5 out of 5 for me again with this episode and last episode. Same.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're both very well connected, and I think it just moved it all along really well, and gave us, I think, the action and everything that made sense to us and that we wanted. And I think these past 2 episodes just answered a lot of questions. So.
Yeah, for sure. Hoping for more great episodes like this going forward.
Yeah.
Things are really starting to pick up here. I hope that we get more Cad Bane and Fennec.
And we're just barely over the midway point of this season. So I think going forward, we'll definitely see stuff ramp up even more, probably more towards the Empire rather than bounty hunters, because at the end of the day, I think that's going to be the main force. But yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I don't think they have much room for filler episodes going forward, to be honest. So I think it's going to be pretty action-packed.
Yeah, lots more to find out with Omega, the Kaminoans, with our bounty hunters here. So really looking forward to all of that. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for our review of episode 9. Hope you guys enjoyed our review tonight. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Again, subscribe if you're not already to the channel. Leave us a like, a comment. Let us know your Easter eggs that you found or some things that we might have missed. Let us know about it. Let us know your theories as well. And you can check us out on the podcast feed. All the links will be in the description. So check us out there. But we'll be back soon with our live shows and more Loki reviews, more Bad Batch reviews coming soon. So we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.